Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator for the Innovation Pitch Challenge, Mark Becker, President of Georgia State University.
Well, good morning and welcome to the APLU USU Innovation Pitch Challenge, Student Success 3.0. This is a Shark Tank pitch session put together in cooperation between the Coalition of Urban Serving Universities and APLU. We thank our generous supporters. We've been very fortunate to attract funding both from the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, the Great Lakes Higher Education Guaranty Corporation, and the Lumina Foundation. So first, please, let's all give them a round of applause and thank them for their support. Now, at your tables are sign-in sheets, so please do sign in. This session today is, of course, to encourage innovation in higher education. And the need to do so, I think, goes without saying. We're a long way from where we need to be as a country, and particularly in terms of college completion, of which advising is an important part. And if we just keep what we're doing, we'll keep getting the same results, which are inadequate. In fact, I think it was Albert Einstein whose definition of insanity was to do the same thing over and over again and expect the results to change. So we need new approaches. We need different approaches. And in this session, we get an exposure, deep exposure to a variety of ideas, perspectives, approaches. We'll shine a spotlight on the innovations occurring in higher education that otherwise might go unnoticed and really bring those to the fore here, and highlight, of course, the importance of student advising as it impacts student success. And at my own institution, for example, at Georgia State, a number of years ago, we completely restructured student advising. In a essence, took it away from the deans and the colleges, centralized it, professionalized it, and resourced it with new technology tools and new programs and new systems into a much more proactive environment. To put it simply, last year alone, 43,000 face-to-face interactions between students and advisors, and most importantly, the results are that retention and graduation rates have increased as a result of these changes. For today's session, we invited proposals from USU and APLU institutions. 37 applications were received for 6 slots. We'll have 6 presentations today. And the competition was incredibly tight, incredibly tight. In addition to the 6 you'll hear today, we're actually going to recognize another group of institutions, those who didn't quite make it to today's session, but we're calling them innovations to watch. And so let me tell you just a little bit about each of these. First, from Bowling Green State University, theirs is centrally coordinated, decentrally delivered. And this looks at expanding the creative use of SharePoint to collaborate with program offices and advisors who serve underrepresented students across the decentralized system. Next, Cal State University Fullerton. Their program is Student Success Teams and Gap Closing Campaign Pilots, creating a whole new advising structure. The university assembled talent from across the university into college-based student success teams. Each team works as an advising laboratory within its unit's unique context, transcending entrenched reporting lines and creating independent accelerators for the incubation and implementation of proven and experimental advising approaches. Next up, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Degree Architects Initiative, connecting academic progress, co-curricular activities, career development, and data design. Data architects will work across disciplines to build degree pathways. Next, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, Predictive Transfer Portal combines 3 advising systems, a transfer database, a graduation analytics engine, and a real-time degree audit to show transfer students and their advisors how transfer credits map onto the intended major and what the likelihood of graduating in that major is and how long it will take to finish. And lastly, but by no means least, Wayne State University, Educational Engagement and Encouragement Engine, E4. A predictive advising tool that includes predictive analytics, gamifications, positive psychology and motivation theory, and a coherent set of co-curricular engagement opportunities to deliver custom encouragements, opportunities for academic engagement to students. Okay, so please, let's acknowledge and give a round of applause to those, our innovations to watch. Thank you. Okay, let's get to the competition. So let's start with the rules. The judges have $160,000. Remember, we got sponsors. $160,000 to distribute to a maximum of 3 institutions. Judges may choose to allocate fewer awards. They don't have to give 3. They could give 2 or they could give 1. but no more than 3. The first prize will be $100,000. Judges may then distribute the remaining money as they collectively decide is appropriate, evenly or unevenly distributed to 2 others, in one lump sum to one other institution, or give the full amount to the team they determine to be the winners. After the pitches, the judges will have 5 minutes to ask questions of each pitch. The audience then, after the judges, will have 3 minutes, roughly 3 questions, and audience questions are to be sent via Twitter. Please use the hashtag #APLU 2015 to submit your questions, and then we will present the questions for you once we receive them through Twitter. Once the pitches are completed, the judges will adjourn to a second room adjacent to the main pitch session to deliberate. And during that time, we will have speakers from the foundations to talk about their ideas on what drives student success and how they are investing in them. We'll have about 10 minutes for that. The audience will also have an opportunity to vote using the conference app. Winner of the audience vote will win $5,000. Instructions on how to do so are printed on the table. The votes will take place from your conference app. If you do not have it, you can download it now, and please do. Okay, so let's get to the judges. Pleased to introduce our 5 judges. I only see 4 of them sitting there. I think 5 is this many. Ben Dobner, Director of Education Grant Making at the Great Lakes Higher Education Guaranty Corporation. Ben, if you could stand and turn around to the audience so they can see who's here. Thank you. Nicole McDonald, Strategy Officer at the Lumina Foundation. Nicole, thank you. Charles Nutt, Executive Director at NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising. And Kathy Sandine, Chancellor, University of Wisconsin Colleges and University of Wisconsin Extension. Thank you. We have a substitute? Okay. We will have a 5th judge. Please welcome Tom Maltz, Associate Vice Provost for Undergraduate Affairs at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Tom, welcome, and thank you for filling in at this last second. Okay, so we've got the rules, you know what the prizes are, you know what the process is, you know who the judges are. So now the moment of truth has arrived for our pitch teams. The first pitch, Me 3, meeting high school students where they are, to be presented by Jacqueline Smith, Executive Director of University Initiatives at Arizona State University. Please welcome Jacqueline.
Many of you remember, as I do, taking a multiple choice career assessment back in high school. It was a long process, and to be honest, it was boring. It just didn't feel connected to me. These personal choices that we make about where to go to college involve figuring out who we are, what we want to become, and how to get there. Tools to help us with these personal decisions can and should be personalized. At Arizona State University, our pioneering efforts with online academic advising have improved our 4-year and 6-year graduation rates over the last 8 years. We decided to take what we had learned at the undergraduate level and apply it to our high school pipeline. We know that nationally, socioeconomic status is predictive of college eligibility. In Arizona, just 10% of our high schools are producing over half of our college-bound students. And with 880 students for every 1 guidance counselor, that's hardly a personalized approach. With the support of a donor, we designed an online intervention that meets high school students where they are and puts them on a pathway to success. In September of this year, we launched Me 3, a mobile-enhanced website that enables students to assess their career interests, explore college majors, and make a plan for the high school classes they should be taking now in order to reach their future goals. Unlike those boring multiple choice paper and pencil assessments that you and I remember, Me3 meets high school students where they are, on their phones, or their laptops, or their tablets. It's really easy to use. Here's how it works. A student will simply choose between one of two images. They might see an image of a person conducting a lab experiment or a teacher working with a young group of students. After making 60 such selections, Me3 will offer 3 career options for that student to explore. That student will then have the opportunity to pair college majors to that career and identify the high school classes that they should be taking to be on track and college eligible. Me3 helps begin the process of thinking about college sooner. It helps more of our students get on track to be academically college eligible. But Me3 also helps students explore whole new versions of themselves. In the words of Angela, a high school student from Phoenix, she said, Me3 opened my eyes to a whole new field. I had never considered teaching before, and now it's on my radar. We want to give every one of the 300,000 high school students in Arizona the chance to put a new field on their radar. To reach that kind of scale, we need to work in partnership with high school teachers and guidance counselors. We know that these individuals already have a lot on their plate, and they have a variety of rules and regulations that they need to follow. For example, every high school student needs to complete an individualized learning plan. In fact, in 26 states in the US, including 4 of the states represented here this morning, students must complete a plan for post-secondary success. We've heard from teachers that Me3 is more learner-centered and comprehensive than the current options available for individualized learning plans. With your investment of $160,000, we will make the technological improvements needed to make Me3 an official individualized learning plan provider. We will create a model that other states can use to help students foster self-discovery with personalized learning tools. We already have the cross-university team in place to lead these technological advancements. We already have the team of experts to work in partnership with our high schools and lead the outreach. And we have a system in place to welcome freshmen to our campus and keep them on track with their course of study. All that's missing is your support. Together, we can help students figure out who they are, who they want to become, and how to get there. Thank you.
Okay, Jacqueline, we open it up to the judges.
Sure. My first question for you, what are your metrics for success? For example, how do you know whether this is working or not? What are your goals?
Thanks for your question, Kathy. So our measures for success include both determining whether or not the Me3 assessment, which uses the Holland codes for the REASSEC assessment and identifies students' interests, are matching to what other assessments we'll look at for their interests. So we've compared the Me3 results, and here with Angela, you see that she received careers that have to do with the codes for social and enterprising related careers, teaching, interior design, etc. So we've first matched what happens when students take Me3 and the results they would get from other examinations. Now that we've just started our pilot in September, we'll also be tracking how and whether Me3 influences students' decisions to take the right courses in high school and proceed on to college. We're working with a variety of partner districts to track students and how they proceed to the universities in our state. So one of our most important metrics will be how Me3 influences the decisions they're making in high school and how they proceed on to college.
Thank you.
Charles?
So what exactly is going to be the plan for the connection of these students when they hit the university or community colleges in your state, as far as being sure that they don't get lost or dropped off in the middle there?
Sure. So I had mentioned that at ASU, we've been using e-advising for the last 8 years. So when students come to Arizona State University, they're automatically plugged into our e-advising system. And we've used a variety of practices with Me3 called gamification to make Me3 just as fun, as simple as using a game. And so just as you can track your progress on that progress bar, one of the steps in that process is making sure that you're checked in with your e-advising system. Nicole.
One of the things that we're very interested is the implications of this particular Me3 project for a variety of students, traditional age students as well as maybe non-traditional students. Are there any implications for this for students who are maybe not necessarily traditional aged high school students?
What's great about Me3 is that it's so easy to use. In just under 3 minutes, you can figure out a variety of paths that fit for you. And we think that this ease of use is helpful for individuals of all ages, traditional and non-traditional bound students, and that's one of the reasons we're so proud to be bringing it across our state and to share it with all of you today.
What is your plan for communicating this to the high schools and making sure that the students actually do use this product?
Great, thank you. So we have a couple of plans to get this into the hands of our high schools. I mentioned that we wanted to make sure that we qualify as an individualized learning plan provider, and to do that, we have to make a few adjustments to Me3, and that's where your investment is so important. By becoming an individualized learning plan provider, we can then work with districts to let them know that we have a new tool that satisfies that state requirement. We're also working directly with teachers, and we've hosted a launch event, and we'll continue to host additional events and have media to let people know about this easy-to-use and free tool.
We have time for one more question.
What specific technological changes do you need to, or improvements are you looking for with this investment?
Thanks for the question. So we are making a variety of improvements, including adding financial literacy tools and extracurricular tracking. So as you can see on the screen, right now, an individual will track which academic courses they need to take in high school in order to be academically college eligible. But as we all know, there are a variety of steps that students could take outside of the classroom to also prepare themselves for college. So we'd like to add the technological enhancements to make sure that they can track that extracurricular engagement, but also begin thinking about how to pay for college. And so we will be adding financial literacy tools as well.
Thank you.
Okay, from the audience, our first question is there any personalized interaction if students have a question? And can you scale this? Can you scale for personalized interaction?
Sure. So right now, students have an opportunity to message the staff that's behind Me3 if they have a question about their use of the tool. But we also encourage students to work with their guidance counselors, with teachers, with others, so that Me3 is actually a conversation starter if they would like to learn more about interior design or learn more about special education. We also have a variety of features that actually say learn more, where a student can get more details about the outlook of a particular career or the math intensity or requirements related to a particular major.
Okay, so that question looked at personalization. Going in the other direction, how does Me3 help counselors?
So with those large ratios that I mentioned, 880 students to one guidance counselor, it can be hard for a counselor to try to navigate a more personalized conversation. So imagine a student like Angela going into her guidance counselor, and instead of starting the conversation from scratch and not having a sense of where she'd like to begin, she could talk to that guidance counselor and say that she has 3 careers that she's currently considering: teaching, interior design, and public relations, and that she's paired college majors with that career. That guidance counselor and that student, who likely don't have many minutes to share with each other, will now have a more sophisticated conversation about Angela's future.
Okay, so we've covered the counselors, we've covered the personal, and now we go to scale. So how much would Me3 need to change to be viable in other states, and is the platform scalable across other states?
We've designed Me3 so that it has a backend that could input information from any other university. So a university would simply need to be able to import to us the college courses that are part of that major and the requirements that they have for this major. This is part of why we're so thrilled to be sharing it with you here today, because other universities and other states that want to use this technology will be able to connect with us and do that.
And then lastly, tell us about the cost to the students or cost to those who would choose to scale this.
So there's absolutely no cost to students or districts who would like to use our tool. It's one of the reasons we're really proud of it, because some of the other tools that are on the market cost districts a significant amount of money. In order to scale this product, as I mentioned, we have a backend that's compatible, and so really we just need to work with other universities to receive their data, and there is no cost to scale it to those other states. What will have an expense should other states want to pursue this would simply be the outreach and the time to make this tool widely known in their region.
Terrific. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank
Please.
you.
Our next presenter is Peter Makesons, Vice Provost for Academic Programs at Cleveland State University, and he'll be presenting Dual Campus Advising System.
Good morning. I'm from Cleveland State University. We are an access institution with a very large transfer student population, many of whom are underrepresented minorities, first generation, and non-traditional students. Each fall, we welcome to CSU at least 500 new transfer students from our primary community college partner, Cuyahoga Community College, which we also know as Tri-C. Now, one thing everyone knows is that transfer students need excellent advising. They need to know which classes to take and when, so they don't waste time or money. We also know that many students in this position don't get that advising. Many students who arrive at CSU give up on transfer because they discover that they've taken courses that don't apply to their program, so they still have a really long way to go. Transfer students who graduate from CSU take, on average, 10 credit hours more than students who begin with us as freshmen. Those mistakes represent $2 million in tuition that students could have saved rather than spend. Now, right now, we tend to see transfer advising as the community college's problem. Four-year schools like us blame the mistakes we see on bad advising, or even worse, no advising. But if we're to solve these problems, four-year schools need to become involved in transfer advising early. That's why we're proposing a dual campus advising system with our community college partner. We think this can become a model for promoting efficient transfer and reducing transfer shock for four-year schools and their community college partners across the country. Here's what we've planned. First, we'll develop guided pathways that show community college students a clear path to a bachelor's degree, because that's often not obvious even to counselors. We're partnering with Tri-C to develop maps that show a student how they can earn an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree in 8 full-time semesters. We'll also inform those maps with data. We're partnering with Civitas Learning to analyze historical data to identify things that predict successful transfer and build those into our maps. A map not based on facts isn't very accurate. For example, our business school was persuaded that students who took math at the community college were less well prepared than our own students who took math at CSU. But when we analyzed the data, we found the precise opposite to be the case. We need to use data to question our assumptions so that we build maps that really do show the most efficient path to transfer. We'll also use data to help with early identification so we can identify students who do the right things in their first year and get them on track to graduate early. This is something that Tri-C wanted our help with, and it will also help us to identify students who need extra help when they arrive at CSU. Finally, we'll build collaborative advising practices so that advisors at both campuses are in communication and students have access to both. We'll also build methods for tracking students across the two campuses as they navigate this system. We've made a good start on this work. We have degree maps in place for many of our most important programs. The rest are on the way. We've partnered with Complete College America to begin the work of developing collaborative advising. Now in the next year, we'd like to finish the final step in the process, partnering with Civitas to develop effective early identification procedures and to inform our maps with data. With your help today, our counselors, and most importantly, our transfer students, will be able to work smarter, not harder. Thank you.
So Dan?
I'd like to address the issue of scale. So this is great. I mean, the credit mobility issue is key in this country. There's no question about
Right.
that. But you're working with one four-year institution and one community college, large, no doubt, serving a lot of students. How might your idea scale beyond these particular institutions?
Well, our idea is that this is a model on which other schools can base a similar approach. And it's going to obviously vary from state to state how this works. In Ohio, there's a fairly extensive statewide transfer protocol so that there are agreed upon relationships between courses at various schools. In other states, that's not in place. In some states like Florida, there's uniform IDs for all students, so it's easy to track students. In other ones, that's not there. But we think through working with Complete College America, that can become a vector for distributing information about how you do this. And so other schools can learn from this experience and borrow from us. We've found it very helpful to learn from the few schools which have already started doing things like this in Florida and Texas. And we think we'd like to become an example on that level. So the scale will require examining what we do and then distributing that information more broadly nationally.
Thank you.
Charles?
You talked about the idea of professional development and collaborative advising across the two institutions.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about what that type of professional development is going to look like between advisors at the community college and the university?
Well, it involves a variety of things. I mean, we've found, although one of the campuses of Cuyahoga Community College is literally a half mile from CSU, there was virtually no personal contact between the actual counselors on the two schools. And so one of the things we've simply done is to institute regular meetings. Our counselors go there, their counselors come to us. And what this has produced is it's snowballed, so that now the counselors actually, without my prompting, contact one another, and what they're beginning to do is to contact one another about individual students. And that's what we'd really like to see, that I have a student who wants to do X. I'm not sure what to tell them. What can you help me? So we'd like to build personal relationships among the people who do the work so that that can become a self-propelling thing.
Nicole?
Can you tell us more about how you will know that this is working? We're really interested in how you're going to evaluate or measure success.
Well, at the moment, the primary metrics we know we can measure have to do with those excess credits I mentioned earlier. That's a very, very noticeable difference between students who come to us from the community college and our own students, that they take far more credit hours. So if we can reduce that number over a period of time, and it will obviously take a number of years before we actually can see a number that's shrinking, that would be one piece of evidence. I think another thing I'd like to do, and we'd have to really work with Tri-C on this, is to increase the numbers of transfer students who identify early, because that's a goal here. Tri-C tells us that one of the problems they have telling students what to take is that the students don't tell them they want to transfer until they've been there for 4 or 5 semesters. So if we can identify potential transfers in the first year, do some outreach, encourage the Tri-C counselors to actually contact the student rather than waiting for them to present, I think we can increase the numbers of students who express an interest in transferring in their first year, and that will increase the chances that we can reduce those excess credit hours. So that's another metric, if we can raise that number.
Tom?
Peter, you talked about maps to define the pathways. I wonder if along with that there's been discussion of curriculum coordination?
Yes.
And if so, how you've coordinated faculties among the two institutions?
What we've done for each program, we've convened a group of faculty, advisors, staff, it varies from program to program who's in the room, to actually talk about their map and our map and lay them on top of each other to see what does and doesn't match. And we come up with a list of things which are problems. And then it's a negotiation. And we simply say, okay, this course that you require sounds like this course that we require, but it's not in the official transfer protocol. Have a look at it. And if people say, no, they're not the same, can we do a substitution? Can we do something different? In some cases, it doesn't work. There are curricula like...
Get the final question, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what the funds would actually be used for? So is it developing the maps, or what would the funds be used for?
The real cost that we have associated with this project involves the data analytics piece. There's a complicated process to analyze historical data for transfer students because it's hard to track students across campuses. Tri-C is a banner school. We're a PeopleSoft school to compound the problem. And Civitas says, they promise us, that they have a method for doing what they call fuzzy matching, right? Which will allow us to at least approximate a record of students who've transferred from one school to the other, and then to use those data to tell us what works, and also to find milestone courses and benchmarks that we can use to actually steer students appropriately. So that's the cost.
Thank you. From the audience, we have one question. Do you consider training counselors and using technology-enabling methods for scaling and continual improvement?
Do
you consider training counselors and using technology-enabled methods for scaling and continual improvement?
As I said, I mean, using technology across the two campuses right now is difficult because of the two different systems on which we're based. I think training counselors will be a very important part of what we do because we can build maps all we like, but if the counselors don't use them, they're not going to be worth the pixels that are on the screen. And so that's going to be a very important part of making this an effective program. Civitas has been adopted by Tri-C and by us, so there's potential for using technology, shared technology for analytics purposes, but that's the part that we have is not a user-facing tool, so it's not something that would necessarily help with the advisor's work.
Okay, then continuing on the scaling theme, you had mentioned differences between states earlier.
Yeah.
What about scaling within the state of Ohio? Is there the potential for this Cleveland State project to scale across the state of Ohio?
Absolutely. I mean, many of the Ohio State schools have either a community college that's directly linked to them, or they're in a situation like Wright State and St. Clair, that they're a big community college located right near a four-year school, and there's a direct feeder relationship. So the relationship we have with Tri-C is duplicated across the state, and this would clearly work elsewhere.
Thank you. Please thank and congratulate Peter.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from EC's Arce Vega. She's the Associate Director at the Center for Advancement of Teaching at Florida International University, and her project, or presentation, is UPass at FIU.
Fernando always knew he wanted to be a doctor. He thrived in high school, and his whole family cried when he was accepted to FIU. As retention scholars have told us for decades, however, Fernando's chances of earning his degree will be highly dependent on factors outside of his control, like his family's socioeconomic background. This doesn't mean his destiny is sealed, but it does mean he'll need to make wise choices early to earn his degree. Through rigorous data mining, our in-house analytics team has identified a factor that influences student success, yet is rarely targeted in retention efforts: the difficulty of students' course schedules. Herein lies the innovation and the heart of the program I'm here to share with you today, called UPass, which stands for Using Predictive Analytics to Schedule Success. We've developed a data-based predictive model, a decision tree shown here, I think, that identifies students at risk of dropping out using data available prior to their enrollment. Our advisors can now use UPass to provide students with a recommended level of rigor for their overall course schedule, a level of rigor that is more likely to lead to success. UPass gives advisors a straightforward recommendation about students' course schedules. Should they be moderate or intense? Without UPass, advisors have always had access to transcripts, placement exam scores, students' career goals. And at FIU, we've used these. We've used these and we've given students maps outlining the path to graduation in fancy My eAdvisor dashboards. Even so, our students, including aspiring physicians like Fernando, they often find themselves taking what some call a toxic combination of courses: chemistry, biology, and math at the same time. The result, which won't surprise you, is often poor academic performance. And this performance is the strongest predictor of whether students will remain enrolled and ultimately graduate. What's the point in a clearly delineated path to graduation when so many students will drop out after the first year? Our students, 80% of whom come from underserved backgrounds, they can't afford even one semester of poor academic performance. There's simply too much at stake. I'm happy to report that we've begun using UPass, and at the end of this term, we'll examine the extent to which students used the database recommendation and those students' performance and retention to the second term. But there's a great deal more to be done, and that's why we need your support today. UPass is rooted in a strong conceptual model, and it is supported by data, but it can be made much more robust. New variables and information will improve that model considerably. Perhaps most notably, that model doesn't include factors such as support networks or students' levels of self-efficacy, even though we know these to be highly correlated with college success. With your investment of $160,000, we will administer an assessment to our roughly 4,000 incoming freshmen prior to orientation. Our analysts will use this new and different information to enhance their predictive model. Advisors will have access not only to more precise recommendations for students' course schedules, but also to rich, invaluable data with which to more quickly establish rapport with their advisees, to identify their challenges, but also to celebrate their many, many strengths. So what we need today is to collect this information, and we know that UPass is poised to be successful. When it's time for my daughter Camila to sign up for her college courses, I will advise her to take a moderate schedule during her first term. Today, a student like Fernando, whose family can't offer him that college knowledge, can still get the same useful advice thanks to UPass. Together, we can help him schedule his success right from the start. Thank you.
Kathy?
There are some existing systems and programs and technology out there that does this or very similar kind of predictive modeling. Degree Compass out of Tennessee, now with D2L is what comes to mind. Why did you choose to build your own system rather than deploy some of these existing systems?
The analytics team on campus is actually an FIU point of pride, and they work not only on this, but on many things. This forms part of a larger GSI initiative, a graduation success initiative, And our students are different. Their challenges are many, and we wanted a team who could do ongoing analyses. And so this is but one of the things that we use this for. Their model was used first to create major maps, because we saw that students' first obstacle was their inability to see a clear path. But the next step was to identify the courses, the gateway courses that are most predictive of students dropping out. And so our team, because it's in-house and because it is dedicated to FIU, is able to do so much more.
Thank you.
Charles?
Of course, so much of what you're talking about is built upon the advisor use of the information and
Yes.
the tree diagram that you showed us. Can you talk about how advisors have been involved in the whole process of developing this program and what their involvement in helping to select what this instrument is that you're going to be using in the future?
Of course, great question. This was our advisor's idea, and so I need to say that first because they are wonderful. As soon as they found out that our Office of Retention and Graduation Success had built this model, their first question was, how quickly can we get our hands on it? We want to use this information to help our students. And so it was their idea. And then our lead advisors, focusing in sciences for the first time this semester in our pilot, they guided their advisors in orientation on how to use this. And they decided what moderate and intense means, right? Because they're a lot closer to the ground. So this wasn't a decision or a determination made for them. They knew that students could postpone biology but not chemistry in some cases, postpone chemistry but not biology. And so the advisors made those determinations. And we've looked, and the advisors gave the recommendations, and the students had different schedules. So we've already done a preliminary look, and it's working.
Nicole?
I'm really excited about the implications of what you shared, especially for being able to connect with those 4,000 new students, first-year students that you mentioned. I'm wondering, though, about how this particular model is used to help support students as they continue in their studies. If you could share a little bit about that. So, for example, after students are admitted, once their circumstances change, are those kinds of things folded into this particular model to adjust their advising plan and approaches to help support their success, or how does that evolve?
Great, thank you. So I would say that the first point I would make is that it is infinitely scalable outside of FIU. Each institution has its factors that are going to be highlighted in their predictive model, and those can be used everywhere to provide students with first-year schedules that are going to make students more likely to be successful. But I would say that part of the reason that we are excited about this opportunity and the investment is that our analytics group can then identify new toxic combinations of courses, maybe some that happen later on. And so we very much want to start with the first year, because not only because the research has told us nationally, but also internally, that that is the critical point, and those early successes are so crucial for students, both academically and literally, but also in a psychological and kind of broader way. So we very much look forward to looking and identifying new combinations of courses and scaling it out to the other years, but our emphasis right now will be in the first year.
I'm curious about those toxic combination of classes. I wonder if those are already articulated in the maps that you also talked about, and if so, if this flexibility that this program is allowing has any impact on the maps and then subsequently progress towards degree.
That's why the advisors were the ones who made the determination. It's a great point, and it was a concern for us. We don't want to derail students, but we do know that if they don't have those early successes, they're going to be gone. Not only do we lose students, but many end their first year at FIU on academic probation. And so those maps were a great idea and continue to be so, but if we stick to them rigidly and kind of keep our eye on the graduation along the way, we're going to keep losing them. So there is some flexibility, but we are making the recommendations both with the moderate intense recommendation, but also thinking about a long-term plan that is still attainable so that they can still graduate on time.
Ben, you get the final question.
So, as I understand, this is a tool that the students use with their counselor or their academic advisor. Are there plans to develop this to be a self-service tool that the students would be able to self-serve with?
I would say no. And at this point, the language of moderate and intense was very much a language internal to the advisors and with the administration that is developing the tool, because we don't know how students will react. We are moving in every way away from deficit models of thinking. Ours is a majority-minority institution, and they have already lived that. So on the other hand, what we're trying to say is we think you can be more successful with this combination of courses because we know a lot, and we want you to be successful. Now, when we collect the additional data with the new instrument, we will know even more. We'll be able to harness their strengths and serve as cultural navigators in a way. Higher ed is a bizarre and complex culture with our own language, and it was beautifully put in a recent NACADA keynote speech that advisors can serve as cultural navigators, guiding our students to success because we know how things work. We know the hidden rules of academia.
Okay, for our audience questions, first, when matching rigor to FIU students, how do you ensure you're challenging them rather than just offering the path of least resistance?
Great point, and the maps help with that. Clearly, a biology major will still be taking biology. So the rigor is still there. When we looked at how many students were advised or kind of flagged for a more moderate schedule, it was about a third of them. I think that's an important point, that this isn't everyone take an easy first semester. It is not the recommendation. The majority of them, based on our data and our analytics, were ready and are going to be successful with that intense schedule. And so it is moderate and intense, but these are STEM majors, and it's still going to be pretty rigorous.
Okay, and then the next question is following up on that, and it's basically an unintended consequences question. Will success in ramping up the rigor result in Fernando lead to him hitting financial barriers later in his 5th or 6th year of school?
Could you say it again?
So the question is if you have success in ramping up the rigor, will this result in Fernando hitting financial barriers? In other words, by not having the rigor early in the program, but mapping it out later and later, is this going to lead to him getting in financial trouble by extending his program, is I believe the question.
It's a great point, and we have factored that into the model in the program. What I will say is that those early academic successes are more important. Not only because of the very literal repercussions of a low GPA, but the knowledge building. And if you're not building that foundational knowledge, we know that the future and subsequent courses and their learning goals are it's going to be impossible for them to be attained. So we would say quite the contrary, that when we give students early successes, they will both be empowered psychosocially and academically, poised to be successful later on, and more ready to encounter and to be successful in those rigorous courses.
Okay, and then the final audience question is the question for all these is, tell us about scale. How does this scale to other universities, other institutions?
Okay, so I would say that our analytics team, they like to share. And so they are very willing to share how they came up with this predictive model in the decision tree format and help you use the same statistical methods to identify the variables that are most salient for your students. If you notice in ours, the first node branches off based on high school grade point average. And that high school grade point average of a 3.05 for FIU students was a major cutoff point. Where students land on either side of that GPA made a really, really pronounced difference in their likelihood of dropping out. And so we'll walk you through those same steps, and then identifying those toxic combinations of courses is also something that we are planning to share. As we evaluate very closely, another good reason of having our in-house team, we will also know what works, what doesn't work. Your institutions will increasingly look like ours, and so we take that responsibility at FIU very seriously.
Please congratulate and thank ECs. Our fourth pitch is delivered by Melissa Welker, the Executive Director for Student Success Programs and Initiatives at Northern Arizona University. And this one is titled Building a Rapid Response to Risk, or R3 System.
A century ago, Teddy Roosevelt struck out to explore the Amazon River. During that epic trip, he wound up going down an uncharted tributary, the River of Doubt, and was almost lost forever. He relied on his son to help him navigate a dangerous set of rapids to get him out of that tenuous situation. At universities, there is a pool of students who often find themselves headed down a similar river of doubt. For a variety of reasons, they wind up on this river and do not have the skills and experience to navigate it without losing their dreams of a college education. It could be one semester of poor performance, a financial shortfall, or a housing situation that is proving tough to resolve. These are all things that can threaten a student's ability to thrive. At Northern Arizona University, some students find themselves on this river of doubt after their first year. Like many institutions, the focus on retention efforts after the first year wanes, yet support is still needed. Many are first-generation or low-income students who may not have a ready guide. NAU is in the top 5 in conferring degrees to Native American students of the United States, and 43% of our first-year cohort are first-generation students. Of course, today's students aren't the only ones familiar with the need for a guide. Many faculty and staff here today have knowledge, skills, and experiences that can be harnessed for the benefit of these students. We want to establish a formal system of guides to help students navigate their challenges at the university. We are requesting $160,000 to implement a rapid response to risk system, or R-cubed system. Up to 20 professional coaches will work with students to manage their challenges, and they will be trained to initiate difficult conversations and manage their cases. They will partner with students to help them thrive at our university and find solutions. These students will be identified through a 3-pronged approach. We will utilize sophisticated predictive data, current performance as noted by faculty and staff, and recent grade performance to identify students who may need help in determining solutions to these challenges. This unique team of people will be an extension of our academic advising community, but trained to manage cases that may overwhelm an advisor's time. We know we can do this successfully because we have implemented a first-year coaching program that has demonstrated a positive impact on first to second year retention. There is other evidence to suggest as well that this method may work with these students. We want to build on that model. Because of the R-cubed intervention, students who most need the help of a trained coach will have access to a partner to help them find solutions to the issues that they're challenged with. Solutions that will help them thrive at our university and graduate. During this process, they will also learn interdependence and resiliency and see in action that asking for help can be powerful in accomplishing what is most important to them. In essence, our goal with the R-cubed system is to narrow the achievement gap. These 20 part-time coaches we anticipate will work with up to 10 students per semester with an initial impact of up to 200 students. Teddy Roosevelt wanted his fellow travelers to leave him behind, thinking he was slowing them down, but they insisted on helping him get back on track to complete his voyage. We believe we have found a low-cost, effective way to expand our advising efforts and help our at-risk students stay off this river of doubt. Because of this intervention, students will be able to leverage the excellent resources that NAU and the Flagstaff community have to offer. You can help NAU maintain our commitment to our students and their families by providing someone who may be the difference that matters in helping them achieve their goal of a college degree. Thank you.
Start with Cindy.
Can you tell us a little bit about where these coaches are coming from? Are they
Sure.
your faculty? Are they staff?
Yeah.
You mentioned the community, so how are you recruiting them
Sure.
and training them?
Sure. So we currently have a student success coaching program that has been focused on the first year, and we've had outstanding success recruiting our staff and some faculty members, as well as retirees into that group of coaches. And we have about 46 of them currently, I believe, and so in that program. And so we have a setup that has kind of the foundation for what we would want to do with this program. These people would be trained differently than that group of people. I think there's some different techniques that we would utilize in order to make sure that they can initiate those conversations. Those are not easy conversations to have. And so those, I think that the training would be a little different, possibly involving some motivational interviewing techniques, some appreciative advising concepts, sort of combining some of those to make those more powerful. So really we have a foundation that's very well set for that kind of the recruitment of that. And the idea would also be to bring in community members.
It was Kathy, not Cindy, I'm sorry. Charles.
You indicated that part of the reason you want to move to the second year model is the, is the success of the first year model that's
Yes.
happened. How have you measured that success to determine that it actually has had that impact
Sure.
in order to move to a second year?
Well, we've seen that it has a positive impact on retention from first to second year. So it significantly helps students stay in school and move through. We've also seen an increase with GPA and some other indicators. And at our institution, we know, and like many, first semester GPA is a huge indicator to success, and that has really impacted that as well. So there are some ways, and then a lot of the students that we've been working on this program for a while now, and a lot of the students are just really indicating that the coaches are contributing in great ways to their academic and personal success as well. So I think a lot of indicators combine to really make that a powerful opportunity.
Nicole?
You've talked about how this particular approach is an opportunity to leverage the support for the Northern Arizona University community as well as the Flagstaff community.
Correct.
I'd like to know a little bit more about how the Flagstaff community might be engaged in collaboration regarding the development of the program or
Sure.
training associated with the program.
I haven't had much thought around that. However, I do think there's some great initiatives we have within our community. We have a model within the college that I am a part of where we're working with community organizations to meet their goals of the communities that they're working with. And so we do have, again, some foundation laid for those partnerships that would be able to bring in community partners. And we've done a lot of work with our alumni office, and we've done some work with some of the people in the community. And a lot of times they always ask us, how can we get involved? How can we help? And this would be a great opportunity for people like that who really have a few hours of extra time or need some, really want to get engaged in a way that's really impactful to students. I think that would be a great opportunity for them. So there are some foundations and some partnerships already there that we would draw from.
Tom?
If I'm understanding correctly, there will be a cadre of professional advisors as well as a cadre of what we're calling coaches.
Correct.
So I'm interested in that coordination between those two bodies,
Sure.
any sort of reciprocal communication,
Yes.
and then how exactly that communication will happen.
Okay. So the idea is that it is an extension of our community, and so the students who are working with these coaches would work through some of the more personal or pressing challenges that often present themselves, but then with a goal of getting them back with their academic advisor. And so a lot of the communication would be in line with trying to get them back to see their advisor, and with the continued support of that coach. And then when the handoff kind of is done to the academic advisor, assuming all these challenges have been resolved, those kinds of relationships can continue, or the student can say at that time, kind of, thank you very much, and I'm finished. But the goal is really to get them back in touch with this academic advisor after those challenges, and then be able to move through and sort of demonstrate, figure out that plan for progress.
Okay, Ben, the last question is yours.
Do you have plans to scale this larger than the 200 students that you would be able to use with these 20 coaches?
Yes, with this money, my goal would be to show that there is an impact, and really to demonstrate that we can do this well, that we can utilize the skills and abilities that our professionals have at our university to have an impact on these students and to really see that. And my hope would be that we'd even see more than that. But And then my goal would be to demonstrate that and then be able to see how we can do this as an institutionally supported program.
Yep. Please, Kathy.
One other quick question. Do you pay these coaches, and what will you be using the $160,000 for?
Sure. Yep. That's what we will be using that money for. We do pay these coaches, and currently we have a pay-by-meet model that we're using to really manage our budget very tightly with our current student success coaching program, and I would anticipate we would use this as well. It's created a lot of efficiencies for our program and allowed us to hire more coaches to be able to reach more. So we would hire somebody probably to really focus on to that.
So once the money is spent, then the program goes away?
Not necessarily. Again, we have a real good history at our institution of if there are programs that demonstrate impact, and we've done a great job, and I've been a part of some of those, that we can find ways to be able to fund those. And so this is because, frankly, I'm here because of that tradition that NAU has, that we really look at that, and if it's going to be successful, we often will find the way to do that.
Okay, for our audience questions, the first one is building on that is how will NAU initiative be scaled and institutionalized? So.
Well, I think as we start to demonstrate, right now we're using some predictive data to identify these students, and then we can narrow in on that based on the number of coaches or professionals we have, and then we can begin to broaden that out to groups that may need additional assistance as our predictive model becomes more tight. So I think there's the idea we have a lot of mentoring and coaching programs on our campus now that have done an outstanding job and have really shown great impact on student success, and this is just another effort to do that, and so I think that would not be an issue.
Okay, and then the next question, which builds off of that and directly to this pitch, it says, it appears that this pitch is to hire more people, and is that true? And if so, what is the effort's longevity after the funding is consumed?
That's actually the beautiful thing about this pitch. It's not to hire additional people. It's to give our current group of faculty and staff an opportunity to serve maybe outside their roles in a way that they feel is really beneficial to students. Often we have a lot of people at our university, and this has been demonstrated through our current coaching program, that just want to be involved. They want to be involved beyond their role. And this gives them a great way to do that, to carve out some time, which we very clearly set aside in terms of what their commitment would be. And so really it's not hiring additional people, it's incentivizing our current faculty and staff to contribute even more to student success.
Terrific. Well, let's congratulate and thank Melissa from
Thanks.
NAU. This next one will be interesting because my phone's going to answer part of it. Presenting is Sana Karentz Andrews, the Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at Portland State University. And her presentation is, "Hey Siri, where is my degree map?"
Well, like most universities, we've developed degree maps, and our students are using them. But we learned that they're hacking them, pulling apart the navigation and changing the functionality to fit their needs. It was a wake-up call for us. What we found useful is not necessarily what students need to make decisions. Worse, students were getting lost in our degree maps. Take Alex, a 25-year-old transfer student. She's the first in her family to go to college. She's a mom, and she works almost full-time, and yes, she is real. Alex wanted to know, what should I major in? Can I take courses at night? How long will it take me? Can I afford it? How much can I work while going to school? Students like Alex just wish they could ask Siri for the answer to these questions. But Siri's response to these important PSU questions would probably be, "Interesting question, Alex. I am not sure I understand." Students want, and we want, a Siri-like advising experience. They want more than a paper-based roadmap. They want a GPS that tells them when they're approaching a turn, but also how to recalculate when they miss that turn or change their path. This is exactly what we plan on delivering with the award that you will give us today. We're an institution of 29,000 students, and we need to scale up our advising effectiveness. Our current student to advisor ratio is 650 to 1, well below national best practice. Even if we added 40 additional advisors to get to the recommended ratio, at a cost, by the way, of $3.6 million a year, we would not be able to provide students with the real-time advising that they need and they're asking us for. So we're asking you for $160,000 toward a total project cost of $365,000 to create what we call super awesome degree maps, a self-serve, mobile-friendly tool that will support the kind of routine, proactive, and informed decisions students need to make 24/7 and will reduce the achievement gap. So here's how our super awesome degree map would work for Alex as she considers transferring from Portland Community College to Portland State. Alex can compare the course loads for the two majors she's interested in side by side. Filters help her determine cost, how long it will take, and career options. She can apply to and get admitted to PSU directly from the tool. She can see the courses that transfer, look at a proposed course sequence, and decide on the courses she's going to take. And if her work schedule changes and now she's concerned about the course load that she would be carrying, she can save the map and make an appointment with a professional advisor directly from the tool. For 10% of the cost of adding additional advisors, we can provide the real-time advising for all students, including adult learners like Alex. That is a fantastic return on investment. We believe the tool will enhance the academic experience of all students. It will provide consistency and quality in advising, and it will rely on our very sophisticated student analytics for proactive, critically timed student interventions. We do think that this is something that all students will be able to use, and will measure its effectiveness by how our students use it and the decisions they make. On our end, everybody's on board. Our deans and our advising council, our 3 community college partners, our student design teams, and yes, even the provost. We'll be able to leverage the resources that you give us with the university resources we have to make this tool a reality. We believe that this method of advising and the tool itself will be adaptable by other institutions. We will make our code and our support materials available through a Creative Commons license so that any institution can use them. So Siri, what do you say to giving PSU $160,000 toward this initiative? Transformational, Provost Andrews. I can't wait to be a student at Portland State. Thank you.
Kathy?
Very nice. How far along are you in the prototyping of this? I noticed from your materials it's kind of a rough drawing of what it might look like.
Right, so we're pretty far along in the prototyping. We've had these student design teams actually working on what it would look like and have a lot of the pieces in place, and what's left to do is actually write the code in order to make this happen.
Charles?
In what way are the academic advisors who are on your campus already involved with developing the questions or the types of information that would need to be in Siri to have the responses that go there?
So we've used an approach at PSU for many of our things called design thinking, where what you do is you're actually working with all of the users from the very beginning. You don't wait to develop something and then have a pilot. So the advisors and the students have been very involved in the development of this.
Nicole?
You mentioned that you would be looking at student use as one of the metrics of success, and there were a couple of other metrics that you mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit more detail about how you would be tracking student use and success?
Sure, so without sounding too big brotherish, the great thing about the tool is we can see what every student accesses. We can see what they're looking at, how often they're looking at it, and then because we have very sophisticated student analytics, what we'll be able to do is begin to match how they're using the tool and how they're succeeding in the courses and the work that they're doing. And again, being able to provide those early interventions when we see if someone's beginning to make some wrong choices or not the right choices at the right time.
So the system will obviously give a very sound advice to a student. What then do you see the role of the advisor once they do have that meeting vis-a-vis the information they've gotten from the machine?
Right. So the nice thing is that the advisor will have access to all the information that the student accessed. So what they'll be able to do is look at what's the degree map that the student saved, what's this course schedule that the student saved, and sort of very much like many of the other tools that we're very used to, that is a lot of information up front. And when you make your, you call the airlines and they already know what, they look at your phone number and they already know, oh, here's your flight information, here's everything else. Having all that information up front will then help the advisor work with the student on the specific issues that that student has. We also have a unified advising record, which means that regardless of which advisor a student would see, what they would be able to do is have access to all the information that that student has. Kind of like a medical records that we all are used to when we go to see a physician, where they know, here's what's been prescribed by different individuals.
Ben?
So in the example you provided, it was a student transferring from a community college. Do you envision this tool being just used for transfer students, or is this a tool that students throughout their 4 years will be using?
We envision it to be not only a tool that students would use throughout their 4 years, but also a tool that prospective students could use in terms of actually looking at what would I think about majoring in at Portland State, what are the various careers, what do the courses look like, and what would it cost me? So we envision a whole range of prospective and also current students using. And then what we'd like to do eventually is have it so that alumni are also using it in terms of being able to access some of the career opportunities that we have.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Nicole?
I'm very interested in the possibilities of this impacting very diverse students, non-traditional students. And one of the things that I'm wondering is, will students have the opportunity, because they can apply from this platform, also to enter information about any prior learning experiences that they happen to have, or internship experiences, or other experiences that might support their education?
Right now we haven't, that's a really great suggestion. Right now we haven't thought about how they build that in. We do credentialing for prior learning, so there'd be an opportunity for students to do that towards some of the courses, but we haven't really thought about how they might take all of that and integrate it into the tool, and that's a great suggestion, so thank you.
Okay, we'll go to questions from the audience next. First off, this one starts with great idea. What do you estimate the annual costs of operating and maintaining this system to be?
So we anticipate that it will probably cost us around $300,000 a year to maintain it. And we look at the cost we're already investing in advisors. And again, if you go back to that notion, in order to provide this kind of functionality, we would need to spend about $3.6 million more a year than what we're doing. We consider the $300,000 a year to be a pretty small cost to be able to do that, but that would what we anticipate the ongoing cost to be.
Okay. The next question up is, it's the presumption that you're going to actually open source this degree planner. How will this work across different underlying SIS or ERP platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not a code writer, but but I think that what I've seen already in the materials that we've used from other institutions that have made their materials available through this common platforms is that our IT folks have been able to manage to figure out how to use those and adjust them based on what the systems are that we use. So I think if we keep in mind as we write the code that it has to be simple, it has to be adaptable, that hopefully that will happen with other institutions.
Okay, this question comes from the same individual that asked you your code translation platform question. How will PSU handle the complexities of nonlinear majors?
Well, that's kind of the beauty of this, right? What we were finding is that we had these lovely, lovely degree maps that really looked at the way a student would progress through a program in a very linear fashion. And we found the students hacking them. It was really amazing to look at how they created the functionality in them in order to be able to deal with just exactly that question, and that is, what happens when I change a major? What happens if I have credentialing for prior learning? What happens if I stop out? So that's exactly what the tool is designed to do. It's to get away from that sequential process and to look at it very much like a GPS, and that is to begin to provide real-time data based on the things that are happening to the student.
And I'll hack that last question by asking, have you thought about introducing Siri to Watson to try to figure out all the nonlinear possibilities? Well,
I'll take that as a comment.
Okay. Please congratulate Sauna and her team.
Thank you.
Okay. Our final pitch comes from Alan Houston, Director of Academic Strategy Initiatives at the University of California, San Diego. And this pitch is entitled Engage Learning Tools. Alan?
True story. My daughter quit high school after the 10th grade. My wife and I worried a lot. But outside the confines of the traditional classroom, my daughter continued to learn. She worked at Starbucks and became a skilled team member. She volunteered in shelters for the victims of domestic violence and developed an uncanny ability to work with people suffering vulnerability and loss. At community college, she became a tutor in mathematics. Having struggled herself, she was gifted at teaching others. And when she transferred to a four-year institution, she was trained and licensed to operate an on-campus nuclear reactor. She earned no credit and she received no pay, but she learned a tremendous amount of science and engineering. None of these activities appear on an academic transcript. At most institutions, they would not even be part of Kelsey's record, despite the fact that they were essential to her growth and development. Experiential learning is especially important to students who are academically at risk. High-impact practices, things like tutoring, community service, working in a laboratory. Research demonstrates that these things improve students' GPAs, deepen their academic engagement, and make it more likely that they'll graduate. But unfortunately, universities are not taking full advantage of this fact. First-generation students are far less likely to participate in high-impact practices. Low-income students and adult learners lament that competing demands, such as work and family, make it extremely difficult to find appropriate co-curricular activities. At UC San Diego, we've launched a suite of engaged learning tools to help every student take full advantage of experiential learning opportunities. To help them discover what's possible, we provide a portal of opportunities. The database is curated. Some students may only be able to do one thing, and we want to make sure that it's right for them. To help students capture all the skills that they develop outside of the classroom, we have an official co-curricular record. Participation and competencies learned are validated by faculty and staff, and the record is maintained by our registrar. To help students review all of their academic achievements, we have an enhanced transcript with detailed information about their coursework. And finally, to help every student take full advantage and showcase all of their skills and abilities, we provide a state-of-the-art electronic portfolio. These tools are woven together with a set of 10 transferable skills, things like leadership or effective oral communication. They combine academic and career planning. And they're designed for today's students, having both online and face-to-face components. So for example, an engineer might find a robotics internship on the portal, document her teamwork skills on her co-curricular record, and then showcase through a video her final project on her electronic portfolio. Throughout, she's been able to work with career and academic advisors, use online tutorials, and learn from her peers. We just launched these tools, and already they're a success. Each month, over 400 students begin using the portal. Every undergraduate has a co-curricular record, and hundreds of activities are already listed. Over 5,000 students have already created vibrant electronic portfolios. You may be wondering about Kelsey. She is currently pursuing a PhD in mathematics at Cornell University. The power of experiential learning is visible in her life. Just imagine what her electronic portfolio would look like. But every student deserves the opportunity to create and tell a rich and compelling educational narrative. The engaged learning tools empower them to do just that. In the coming year, we'd like to share these tools with all 650,000 undergraduates in the University of California and the California State University systems. Half of these students are Pell Grant recipients. 1/3 are first generation. With your support, we'll be able to reach every one of them. Thank you.
Kathy, you want to start us off?
You know, the power of capturing a more detailed look at a student's learning is very compelling. It seems that what you've developed is really internal motivational for the student. Have you connected at all with employer groups or thought about how this might enter into grad school applications? Have you gone beyond your own internal conversations about this idea?
Yes, on all counts. From the development point of view, the competencies, every item that's listed on a co-curricular record has 3 competencies associated with it, and those are determined by the faculty and staff who are supervising and validating the experience. And that list of 10 core competencies are ones that we established in conversation with employers. It was our Career Services Center that provided leadership in drafting them. And so we look at these as a way of documenting, and something that we know from national studies, employers are looking for individuals who possess the capacity to be leaders, the ability to communicate effectively. And so the skills that we're working on are things that we're being told by surveys repeatedly that employers are looking for. One next phase of the project, each of these projects we have a planned second phase as we move forward, and one would be to extend to help students with graduate school application, but also with graduate students themselves. We know that the graduate job market is changing, and they too, graduate students, need help developing the ability to translate what they have done in the classroom into the skills and abilities that will enable them to thrive outside the classroom.
Thank you.
Charles, do you have a question?
I have 2 short questions, I think.
Sure.
One, I'm not quite sure what exactly you're going to spend the money for.
Sure.
With the project. And then 2, exactly right on documenting the information and what the students are doing. How is this being connected directly with the academic advisors, whether they be professional or faculty, when they work with the students one-on-one?
The money that you would provide would allow us to share these tools with other institutions in California. We know that they are eager. We've already established them in 2 of our sister UC campuses. The funds, we've established the tools on our campus. The funds that you're providing allow us to share with every other institution, public 4-year university in California. The development of the tools was itself collaborative, and academic and career advisors, alumni officers, our registrar, across campus, almost every unit played a role in the development of the tools. When advisors sit down with a student, the vision is they have a dashboard where they're able to call up the co-curricular record alongside the academic record and the degree map, which will include recommended co-curricular activities. And at that point, the academic advisor is able to do more than just academic advising, but instead blend together thinking about
Alan,
what the students
we need
done
to
in
shorten
classes.
your answers so that
Sure.
all the panelists get a chance to ask questions. Nicole?
I'm interested in knowing how you've been evaluating the success of the approach that you've already taken and how you're looking at those metrics as you're thinking about scale to other institutions.
Our initial measure of success is student adoption. And we've just launched the tools this year. We're looking for 100% participation as students move through the university. So we're teaching them in their first year experience course as they first arrive on campus, and that they have this toolkit and they'll use it throughout their 4 years. One thing that becomes available is a full data set on what students are actually doing. So we'll be able to understand in a detailed way how the co-curricular activities correlate with their academic achievements. Tom?
How are you marketing this to students?
Again, first step is through the first year experience. It's a course that we provide, a 2-credit course to students to help them make the transition from high school to college. And so one chief vehicle is as an introduction through that particular course.
Ben?
Are students developing these on their own, or are they working with their instructor or their academic advisor to help build these portfolios?
Portfolios, they work with advisors, they work on their own. Today's students are extraordinarily gifted in curating their own identities, but they don't always know how to pull together the pieces and how to translate their experiences. So what we try and do through online tools and through conversation is help them identify the value of each of the experiences that they've got, and then how to put it in its most impactful form. It will be revised over time.
Okay, there are no audience questions, so do the panelists have any follow-up questions? Oops, breaking news.
Breaking news.
Could any combo of these activities be enough to award certificates to speak directly and maybe more clearly to potential employers? So could you create new credentials out of these demonstrated capabilities in the portfolios?
Yes, you could create credentials, and it's envisioned, so the co-curricular record allows the recording of partial and complete fulfillment of a particular skill or aptitude, and certificates are included within it. So we have certificates on campus that will be included.
Then related to that, have you looked at badges and other sorts of alternative credentials?
So the alternative credentials really points to the next generation, and one of the changes that we hope will happen in higher education in the coming years, and that we've played a leadership role in, the Lumina Foundation has played a role in this, is developing an integrated and standardized set of criteria so that you can align badges and certificates alongside co-curricular records.
Okay, and then another question, that they're hot and coming in fast. How do you verify these co-curricular activities within your system?
Everything that's on the co-curricular record has to be verified by a faculty member or a staff member. They have to certify the student actually completed the activity, and they help determine which particular competencies the student mastered.
Terrific. Let's congratulate Alan and Kelsey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to invite the judges to leave us to go to deliberate. More than one pitch has told them how they're allocating the money already. We'll see to what extent they agree with those directions, if you will. And at this time, I ask that the audience proceeds to voting as well. The instructions for voting are on your table. You vote using the conference app, either on your smartphone or your tablet. And the reminder that your votes actually count. You didn't get pitched the way the judges did. They have $160,000, but you do vote for a prize of $5,000. So there is an audience prize of $5,000. The poll will be open for the next 15 minutes. And while the judges are deliberating, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage 3 speakers, 3 representatives from our funders. Tina Gridiron, the strategy director from the Lumina Foundation. Amy Kerwin, the vice president for community investments from Great Lakes Higher Education Guaranty Corporation. And Ed Smith-Lewis, program officer with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.